Good morning. This is Sami Joka. I am speaking from the Washington, D.C. area. I am originally from Albania, and I'm very interested to speak to you and talk about the Russian-Ukrainian war. Of course, I am an Albanian and I see some interest in this war as an Albanian, but I also am an American and I see some interest in this war as an American citizen as well. And when you are a citizen of two countries, usually the interests that you have in behalf of one country seem to kind of conflict sometimes the interest of the second country you've chosen to become a citizen of. But in this case, as far as the Russian-Ukrainian war goes, it looks like the interest of the Albanian people and of the Albanian nation is not far different from the interest of US and Europe and the other we call civilized world. The US and Europe definitely have invested so much in this war, and of course they would like, I believe, with all this investment they have made, Ukraine to win. I hope this is not to make Russia weak, but if it is, it doesn't go against my interest. A stronger Russian, I have to first say that I love Russian people individually. They are tough fighters, but I don't like ever to see a strong Russia, because Russia, for its own interest, not because of they are evil or whatever, they don't want a Albanian nation at all. They would love us to be assimilated by Serbs and Greeks and the Slavic world, to have, Greeks are not Slavs, and the Slavic world to have access to the Adriatic Sea. As long as Russia is a strong country with a very potent, with an army, with a military might, Albania always has a possibility of having not a good future. So I'm very I wanted to say that whatever I express, believe, or hope might be very subjective and might not be, but I try to be a realist. So, but what I wanted to talk at this moment are two things. First, who is this Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of Wagner group, and do we really have a mutiny, as Russia first said, and the West and Europe and US seem to believe that this is a mutiny, which I don't believe there is a mutiny. So first we talk about Prigozhin, Wagner, and if there is a mutiny with this rebellion or not. Secondly, I want to talk, which I think I might talk first, is who is harming Ukraine the most. And I believe, and I might be wrong, Ukraine is being harmed mostly by Ukrainians themselves and by those who support Ukraine, because they are making a big mistake. They are talking as if Ukraine has become a superpower, and as if they stopped a little bit these few days. I mean, when the supposedly counter-offensive started. And no, it has not started. No, it is not full force, but at least they are becoming now to their senses that they have made a big mistake, a humongous mistake, portraying Russians as a weak fighters, as if they run away because they run in Kherson, or as if they are not able to progress speedily, and that Ukraine is so easy going to win. There are some bloggers that, oh my God, I feel, what are they doing? Like, for example, I think is something that Divine Justice or Oracle's Eyes, or I don't know, some of those bloggers. There are some wonderful bloggers that I really like because they are very realistic. They don't exaggerate things. Is a guy called Jack. If you listen from him, he starts with Jack here, and this is Dennis, who I think was a pilot. Yeah, those two young Ukrainians, I really love to watch their YouTube channels, and I follow them almost every day because they are very realistic. Of course, they would love Ukraine to win. They are very supportive of Ukraine. Yeah, they're doing a great job, better than any other channel news, I believe, because they're giving a lot of information, pure information, far from emotions, far from propaganda. But there are tons of others who have made Ukraine supposedly is such a huge power. Yes, they have their big hearts. They are brave. They want to fight for their freedom, for their country, and God bless them. But you have to be realistic. When you talk so, when you make such comments and beliefs that Ukraine is so huge now and they are so easily going to win, and if the battle proves to be different, it disappoints even me, let alone the Ukrainians, because they expect now an easy victory. It's not such. They are not fighting against some one division here or there. They are fighting against the most powerful military might in the world. It's a tough fight. Their war for freedom has to be portrayed as a resistance, and not as an offensive that in months we're going to liberate Ukraine. Yes, you can liberate if Russia decides it's not worth it anymore to fight and they leave. But if Russia decides to fight and fight even harder, we all know, no matter how much support we're going to give Ukraine, Russia can invade Ukraine and Poland and all Europe in days. We know that. I mean, who doesn't know that might be living in a dream world. So if we realize that Ukrainians, with all we have provided to them, that is still so little to defeat Russia, if we realize that, we'll know that this is a tough fight. We have to keep supporting them if we want them to keep fighting, if they want to fight, till Russia hopefully decides to move out or is defeated after so many losses. But not expect them to run away because we sent a couple of hundred of leopards against them. No, that's not. So please, please, please don't harm the support and believe and hope of the freedom for Ukraine by portraying it other than it is. It is a resistance, is a tough fight. They deserve the support, not for us to motivate them in vain to fight, but if they want to fight for their country, we should keep supporting them, and don't expect them to win in days or weeks or months or in 1 year against Russia. It's not going to be possible unless Russia themselves decides to leave Ukraine. And Russia might decide to leave Ukraine more from the internal problems that they might have than from the outside world. I mean, so now let's go to Yevgeny Prigozhin. I believe I'm saying his name right. I don't know if he's a criminal. Definitely, his forces, I believe, have committed a lot of crimes in Africa, in Syria. That's what I have heard. And they are fighting here, they are fighting heroically for Russia in Ukraine. And they have proven to be more successful, braver of course, and more organized than the Russian army itself. And that was a threat. 6-7 months ago, I posted a video when I said that it will not be far when Prigozhin and Wagner will be fighting against Kremlin and against the Russian army. First, because the Russian generals are going to be very embarrassed and jealous, and they're going to fear him because his popularity is growing in Russia. And while the Kremlin is showing every single day how corrupt and powerless and incapable they are. They have the toughest army in the world. They haven't shown us anything of what they are able to do. And the failure is not because of the young soldiers. It's not because that their army is not as modern as NATO. It's because of their corruption, their inability. That's what happens when you have a group of oligarchs running the country, and with the biggest thug that is there in the country, Putin. Because we all know, even the army that Prigozhin has supposedly established, formed and runs, I don't think it is Prigozhin who has established this army. Is Putin, for his own calculations, to have Wagner there one day, because he's smart, he's clever, in case one day Putin will face challenges from inside the country, he would have had Wagner there as his army. Wagner now grow too big for his shoes. He became more popular than the generals of the Red Army. So definitely he was a threat for Putin himself. He was a threat for the generals. And what they did, they wanted in one hand him to win in Ukraine, and they wanted in the other hand for him not to be as successful as to embarrass the Russian army. What they did, they cut his munitions, they started to attack him. And one thing that we should be talking even more, and we're not talking, only a few days before Prigozhin started to march toward Moscow. They raided his home or some establishment he has, I think in St. Petersburg. They both come from St. Petersburg, Putin and what is his name? And Yevgeny Prigozhin. They raided his home and they stole millions of dollars from him. He is a businessman. That's what has hurted him so much. And he decided to take revenge. He marched toward Moscow. He is a businessman. I am sure they have given him all the money or promised to give him all the money they stole from him and even more. And after he gets the money, because he's smart, he's smarter than all the Kremlin leaders, after he gets this money, he will go to Belarus. He will go to Belarus only to pretend that he is no longer interested for a coup or to fight against Kremlin or whatever, only to get the money they stole from him. Once he get the money they stole from him, which they might have given him already, then he'll come back. First, he's smart, he'll get the money. He'll come back and then he's gonna settle scores, even with Putin now, because he didn't want to talk against Putin first. He was only against Shoigu. So he'll get the money, but the word mutiny. Have you heard the word mutiny? I don't know how is it in Russian, but they said it first. There is no mutiny with Prigozhin. It's a lie. It's a fraudulent misrepresentation of the material facts. It's not true. If half of the army, Russian army, who are under the control and under the authority of Putin and of Shoigu or what have you, if they rebel against Russia, then we have a mutiny, because a mutiny is a rebellion of armed forces against the authority, against their leaders. Wagner is not under the authority of Putin. They wanted to. They tried so hard before for them to enlist under the Russian army, but they refused. Their leader is Yevgeny Prigozhin. Mutiny would have happened only if some Wagner soldiers or battalions revolted against Prigozhin. Only then would be a mutiny. Or only the Russian army revolted against Putin or Shoigu, whatever, then it would be a mutiny. But when Wagner, who is a private group and is not under the authority of Putin, is not under the authority of Shoigu, when they revolted against Russia, that is a rebellion, for a civil war or a coup, but it's not a mutiny. They are mischaracterizing this as mutiny to portray to the Russian public that this is a bunch of traitors who stabbed us on the back. It's not true. That's not a mutiny. That is a rebellion. And this guy, he might come back. Don't be surprised that he will come back or will start leading Wagner from the Belarus, wherever he is, and he is going to call the shots. Kremlin and Putin, they're gonna be his puppets now, even if that will not be obvious. They are terrified. Not the biggest panic they had is not because he was marching there toward Kremlin, but because Russian people, they are cheering his march. It means that Russian people are now supporting him more than Putin, and that's the fear they have. Goodbye.